Hello, everybody. Wow, wow. What a game that the Leafs versus the Washington Capitals was. It started out in a way where you're like, I don't know how this game's gonna go. Washington looks like they're hungry. And then the game kind of just turned into, yeah, I thought Washington was gonna suck this year, and they sucked. And the Leafs won, which was a great game. So, welcome to episode 6 of the TML Domain podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys taking the time to view the content. I hope you like it. Please let me know. Like and subscribe. I very appreciate it. And so let's go. It's very early in the season, and the Leafs have played two short segments to start the season. They had the three games to start the season at home, which they went 2-1 at home. They beat the Montreal Canadiens, they beat the Minnesota Wild, and they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. And in those three games to start the season at home, Matthews was unbelievable. Scored two hat tricks. We all know how that went. The guy is top two in the NHL, hands down. There is no argument. Regardless of how many people try to get on social media and claim that like Jack Hughes is becoming one of the best American players or this guy or that guy, you're wasting your time. The best player in the NHL is Connor McDavid. He's also the best Canadian player in the NHL. And when it comes to the best goal scorer in the NHL, it's Austin Matthews. And, you know, he's the best American player in the NHL. It just is what it is. There is no bias here because uh, there's no bias here because I'm a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's just that's what the stats are, right? You want to argue that Jack Hughes is a better American player or Matthew Tkachuk or, you know, stats are stats. Matthews has got a heart. He's got a Ted Lindsay. He's got Rockets. 50 goals in 50 games, 60 goals season. I don't see anybody else that even comes close. Does Matthew Kachuk have Rockets? Does he have a Rocket Richard? Does he have a Ted Lindsay? Does he have a Hart? Does he have a 60 goal season? What I find, you know, me myself, I'm 42 years old. I'm of a certain generation. It really like you guys let me know how you feel about this. It seems like this generation, the people that are 30 years and below, like that generation of hockey fans really cannot comprehend what 60 goals in the NHL really is. How big of an accomplishment it is. I think people just say, "Oh, well, he scored 60 goals, no big deal." I don't know why, like, this newer generation, 30 years and below, they pass 60 goals in a regular season as okay, he's a great goal scorer. 60 goals is huge. It's not something that happens all the time. Like when Matthews scored 60, they talked about the last guy to do it and the last guy before him, and there just isn't a lot of guys that can score 60 goals in the NHL. Currently, right now in today's NHL, there might just be one guy, and that's Austin Matthews. I mean, they're talking, not me, but when you watch hockey being covered on television, they're talking about Matthews potentially scoring 70 goals in a season. I don't think people really understand how big of a thing that is. Like, it's not. an everyday thing to score 60 goals in the NHL. Or when he scored 50 and 50, people were like, oh, well, he had a 60 goal season. It's unbelievable how quick people pass up these things. 50 and 50 and 60 goals in a season are huge things. They're big accomplishments. Like, it's not just like, it's not like oh, some guy had a double double in the NBA. It's not like, oh, LeBron had a triple double. It's not something to just pass by. When you say Matthew scored 50 and 50, or he scored 60 goals in a season, and then I say, well, have any of these other guys done something like that, or have come close to something like that? People just say, oh, well, Matthews a couple of years ago only had 40 goals, and so did Jack Hughes. It doesn't matter. This guy went wire to wire, scored 51 goals in 50 games, and had a 60 goal season. That's Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry, Mark Messier in his prime, like Ovi in his prime. Those are those kinds of stats. Like, it's not something people this there's a younger generation of hockey fans that just walks by that as if it's nothing. It's unbelievable. Every time I mention 50 goals in 50 games, younger people are just like, so what? What do you mean, so what? If you scoff at 50 and 50, don't bring any stats to me of your guy who had 80 points and 35 goals. Like, don't even come to me with those stats, because if you're scoffing at 50 and 50, there's nothing your guy can do that could even match that. So if that's nothing, then your guy's doing nothing at all. Like, it's weird. So, anyways, back to the conversation. So the Leafs have had two mini segments to start the season. They had their homestand, and now they're on the road. They had three games at home. The three games at home were a roller coaster. They weren't great games, but their offense got them out of it. Matthews again playing at a high level. Nylander and Tavares playing at a hard level. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna try to bring a little bit more structure into the pods, where on uh, every week when I do an episode, we're gonna do a small segment where we give players flowers. I'm gonna call it the flower segment, and we're gonna do a defense and a forward segment where we talk about what the lines look like as of now. Are they clicking? Are they not clicking? Talking about the defense as well. So because I didn't do this for the first episode of the TML Domain podcast to start the season, I'm going to take that three-game home segment, and I'm going to give flowers to William Nylander and Austin Matthews. For obvious reasons, both started the season like a house on fire. It's what we expect. It's what we've come to know um, about these guys in terms of skill, production, top notch. And for this segment, for the second segment, where they're on the road for 5 games, started off in Florida, went to Tampa, played Washington. That first game in Florida was a little bit rough. Um, I can't say that it was a horrible game by the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they just, for some reason, they had tons of opportunities. That's why I don't think it was a truly horrible game. But that it's always the first period. It's always the first period. Um, if the Leafs survive the first period or play well in the first period, they usually win games. And if they come out flat and they struggle and they can't get through that initial 20 minutes, then they struggle in games. And in that Florida game, there was two tipped pucks that went by Samsonov, and but overall Samsonov was good in that game. And the Leafs lost 3-1. Tampa, a little bit different story. Um, Samsonov wasn't great in that game. It was a weird game because you hear the goalie let in 3 goals on 4 shots, but it took a long time to get those 4 shots on net. Like Tampa was skating around and they were producing, but they didn't have. It wasn't like they dominated that first period, but they got 3 goals on 4 shots, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Their fourth shot came 10, 11 minutes into that period or something like that. And Samsonov got pulled, and the young guy Joseph Wall comes in net and pretty much pitches a shutout for the rest of the game, doesn't let in a single goal. And the Leafs skated hard. They they created a decent amount of offense, but it wasn't until the third period when Max Domi and Matthew Nyes connected for 2 gorgeous goals, which really alleviated a lot of pressure for both players. To start the season, Max Domi was getting some criticism. It's, I wouldn't say it's fair criticism. I mean, 5 games into the season, 6 games into the season is not enough time to really get an idea of what a player is about on a new team with new line mates going up and down the lineup. I mean, hockey fans in Toronto have to have a little bit more patience. You can't just say, "Oh well, Max Domi, he's got to." First of all, there was way too much hype behind Bertuzzi and Domi coming into the season, unnecessary and very exaggerated. Yes, they bring grit, but it's not the kind of grit. It's not the kind of grit. It's not a Ryan Reeves kind of grit. It's Domi is not really a hitter. If you watch the games, he's not pasting guys into boards. He doesn't finish a lot of checks. But after the whistle, if you push him or get into his face, he's going to stand right in your face and he's going to give it right back to you. He'll throw a couple of punches. You know, he'll give you a face wash. He'll do whatever. Once the whistle goes, both players will get scrappy. But in between the whistles, not so much. And it's kind of good actually. Once you alleviate the pressure of getting that first point, of getting that first goal, the players tend to relax a little bit. Bertuzzi is not running around taking like horrible penalties like he did to start the season, and Domi took a couple of penalties too, being a little bit wound up when he goes on the ice trying to make the right play. He was thinking too much and not really moving his feet. Once he started moving his feet and not thinking so much, Max Domi, did what he does, and he's a really good playmaker. And he put the puck on a stick, on the stick of a young guy who has a lot of scoring prowess in Matt Nyes, and Matt Nyes got the job done. Good for the both of them. I think, it's way too early to judge either player. You really need 20 games. At 20, you can start the criticism, or whatever it is. If they're playing well, you can give them their flowers, and if you got criticism, you can criticize. But at the end of the day, um, 5 or 6 games is way too early, and clearly Bertuzzi is dealing with something. He can't sustain his energy on the first line. They've moved him down to the second line. He didn't look too bad versus Washington on the second line with Tavares and Nylander, but missing practice, taking maintenance days, you can tell that he is not 100%. So, however long it takes for him to get up to 100%, we'll see. But 6 games is too early to really judge anything, and two, they could be playing injured. You never know, and I don't think they've really found their homes on the lines that they're on. Like, there's no guarantee that Bertuzzi is going to be a top line or a second line or a third line, or Domi. Same thing for Domi. We don't really know where they fit yet. The fit is definitely getting better, but it's still a work in progress. So we'll see. We'll see how they play in Dallas tonight. They're going up against a really good team with a really good goaltender in Jake Ottinger. So it's going to be a real good test for the lead scorers, how they produce offense. And Joseph Wall being in net is going to play a team that creates a lot of havoc in front of the net, creates traffic, and they're really good at getting their sticks on pucks and tipping, deflecting and tipping pucks. So it's going to be an interesting game. So for the first week, the flowers go to Nylander and Matthews, like I said. And the second week, it's going to have to be Joseph Wall and John Tavares and William Nylander. Now, Domi and Knies have played well also, but I really want to talk about Nylander and Tavares a little bit. It's this fan base, for some reason, is looking for any excuse to write both players off. There's a segment of the fan base that says John Tavares is washed up, he's not worth $11 million, and on and on and on. The guy might be. It's a silly thing to say that at this point in his career, getting paid $11 million, being a franchise player for 2 franchises, and being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, that you could actually say John Tavares is very underrated. John Tavares has been the same player his whole career. He's going to average 30 goals and he's going to average point a game. That's who he's been. That's how he's always been. That's how it's always going to be. And if you expect anything more, if you expect 40 goals or 90 points or 100 points, then you're at fault. It's not John Tavares' fault that he didn't score 40 goals and 90 points or 100 points. That's not his fault. It's your fault for having unrealistic expectations of a guy who's averaged 30 goals and a point per game in his career. That's what he is. He's going to score 30 or more, and he's going to get 82 points or more. That's just how it is. That's who he is. It's your fault for having the wrong expectations. And, people's expectations change from season to season based on what the media is saying, based on what TSN is saying, or Sportsnet, or Hockey Night in Canada, or whatever. At the end of the day, If you're a smart hockey guy, you'll look at a guy you'll look at a guy who's been in the NHL for 10 plus years, and if the guy's averaged 30 goals and 82 points, that's what he is. If one time he scored 40 goals and 90 points, and then every other year he's been 30 goals and 82 points, then that's what he is. Sometimes you have an outlier season. Sometimes Jonathan Chichu scores 50 goals. Sometimes, you know, a goalie comes out of nowhere and has a Vesna season and then never plays again in the NHL. We've seen it a million times, right? It happens. Guys come out of nowhere. They have unbelievable seasons. It's the NHL is crazy in that way where, you know, totally unknowns or even known players can get really hot and have crazy seasons and then never duplicate that again. Jim Carrey, the goalie, comes to mind. Jonathan Chichu comes to mind. Whether it's Briere, Drury, there's lots of guys, right? Who had that one crazy year, got paid based on that crazy year, and then never did it again. And it happens. So, you got John Tavares, been in the NHL 10 plus years. He had 1 year where he scored 46 goals or whatever it was with Mitch Marner on his line. And then all of a sudden people expect that that's what it's going to be all the time, and that's not. He's a 30 goal guy and an 82 point guy. That's just what it is. By far one of the most underrated number two centers in the NHL. And then there's William Nylander. For some reason, people love to hate this guy for whatever dumb reason that they come up with, right? There's always something. Oh, well, did you see that play where he didn't really back check enough? Or did you see that play where he could have hit that guy and he didn't? I see William Nylander as a guy who keeps getting better. I see William Nylander as the Leafs' best playoff performer in terms of scoring in key moments and racking up the points. He really brings it in the playoffs. There's no denying that. And now, when I see him play, yeah, there's a play where a defenseman, reverses the puck on the boards to his partner, and then they go up the ice, and William Nylander barreling in on the guy could just smash him into the boards. I understand that that's how hockey is taught, and that's what you're told to do is always finish your check. But I see William Nylander as a guy who plays 82 games every year and plays every playoff game. I want him in the lineup, and I don't need him blocking pucks, and I don't need him smashing guys into the boards where one guy gets pissed off and grabs his arm and pulls him down or does something stupid like one of the Kachuk brothers would, or a Marchand would, or a Uyghur would, or a Montour would, or there are players in the NHL that don't like to get hit, especially by skilled guys, and they'll grab them and pull them down, and you might hurt something, you might pull something. Look at McDavid, prime example. At center ice, goes into a puck battle. I don't know if I can't tell if he initiated the hit. He went in there to finish a check, or if it was a reverse hit by the player that he was trying to hit. But he's out. He's out. He pulled something. It kind of looked like he mouthed on the bench that he tore something. He's out at least a week. I think it's going to be longer than a week. If it's up to him, he would play through anything. He's a warrior. He's a superstar. He's everything. So but sometimes you got to do what's best. And right now, the Oilers are absolutely just imploding. So it's a tough situation. Yeah, I see McDavid getting hurt, and I know as a fan, I would be gutted if I saw Matthews, Tavares, or Nylander skating to the bench like that. I don't know. To see a player out a couple of weeks, but you can't put him on LTIR, and that's even the tougher part. Is Edmonton has absolutely no cap space to call up anybody, and what are they going to do? You have zero cap space, and you can't put him on LTIR because it's not a long-term injury, but it could be, but it's not. The NHL has really hamstrung some teams. Like what? I don't even know what they're gonna do. So, getting back to the moral of the story, we've given Matthews his flowers. John Tavares and William Nylander really need some respect in this market, and I'm giving him the flowers. The only tandem in Maple Leaf history to start the season out on this kind of point streak, you know. And Joseph Wall for being solid, for coming in when he has to in tough situations against Tampa and playing against Washington. And Ovi is just raring to score goals, dying to get to Gretzky. Flies flies through a crowd of people in front of the net, puts himself into the net, just hoping the puck hits him and goes into the net. That's a tough situation for a young goalie to go into, a very hostile situation. Nobody would really blame the young goalie for folding in that kind of position. Lots of pressure, but he was calm and cool. So this week started with a 4-1 win in Washington. The Leafs play at 8 p.m. in Dallas tonight, and they have Nashville on Saturday. So we'll see how the third week the third week goes. Who's going to get the flowers for this week? And it's already looking like Joe Wall going to get some flowers this week. So there's our segment on flowers. We're giving our boys their just rewards. They haven't started the season pretty. Way too much turnover. The Leafs do this to themselves every single year. Way too much turnover. They have to spend the first part of the season creating the chemistry needed to build a winner. And sometimes you get. I think that's pretty much the reason why the Leafs always have slow starts to the season is because there's too much turnover, not enough continuity, and they got to build that chemistry to start the season, and it's rough. It's hard. So, based on the last game that the Leafs played against the Washington Capitals, the top line was Kelly Yarncroc with Matthews and Marner, which wasn't bad. Looked good. Matthews scored a nice goal on the power play. Half clapper, top cheese. And the second line, which also didn't look half bad, was the Tavares, William Nylander, and Bertuzzi line. I don't know if it seems like Bertuzzi is better suited for that line, and it didn't look bad. William Nylander walked the guy in the slot, absolutely dangled the hell out of. I don't know who it was in the slot. Goes to the net, goes around the guy, and slides one to Bertuzzi. And I thought Bertuzzi was for sure gonna put that top corner, but Darcy Kemper made the save. So I think just overall, Tyler Bertuzzi being a kind of guy that has very underrated hands. He's a little shifty. He gets to the front of the net. I think John Tavares and William Nylander are two guys that take the puck to the net more. Matthews and Marner not so much. They're more make plays and score off a shot, from the face-off circles out. They're not really a take it to the net, crash and bang type of line. So I think Calle Yarncrook is better on that line. He hustles, gets pucks back. And then we saw Camp with Nyes and Domi. And I thought Domi looked pretty comfortable on that line. They skated, they had some pretty good plays. David Camp is not a fourth line center. He's definitely, I'd say, his best position, the best suited position for him is the third line center. And if you're not going to use him as that, if the Leafs get to a point where, let's say, either Nylander is a third line center or, it's Minton or Holmberg or somebody, if it's somebody other than Kemp, you got to trade Kemp. Paying $2.4 million for him to be your fourth line center, where he plays less than 10 minutes a night, is a complete waste of money. Noah Gregor could be your fourth line center, and you could bring up Robertson and have an $800,000 line, right? So, but he looked good. David Camp on that third line looked good, and that's where he's suited. If you're going to pay him $2.4 million and you want, Matthew Knies a little bit more responsible defensively, and Camp is the most defensively reliable on that third line. Max Domi not so much. Then you have something. At least now you have four lines that are NHL caliber lines. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with Fraser Minton. We all wanted it to work out. We fell in love with the kid out of camp. He played great. He had so much momentum going. But the rosters were different. And then once you get to NHL rosters, you're playing against men, and they're strong and they're big. And even if they're not the most skilled, they can push you off the puck. And unfortunately, as a 19-year-old, it doesn't look like Fraser Minton is going to stick around. But, kudos to him for trying as hard as he did and opening the eyes of the fan base to a player that is coming in the pipeline. Him and Easton County. So, yeah, the Leafs have four NHL caliber lines now, and they look better. Gregor and Holmberg are two fast guys, and it kind of helps to make up for the speed of Ryan Reeves. But that fourth line instantly looked better. Once they called up Holmberg and put him with Gregor and Reeves, that fourth line instantly looked better. It was night and day from what it was before with Camp. And the defensive pairings, I mean, Riley and Brody are getting better out there. I think it took a little while for them to get back into their mojo. The Jake McCabe and Liljegren pair is a real work in progress. I mean, Jake McCabe. I mean, what can I say about this guy? When we first traded for Jake McCabe last year, we heard a lot about, this guy looks to step up at the blue line. He looks to hit people, and sometimes, he can get caught going for that hit. And, as a Leaf fan, I'm like, I'll take a guy who goes for hits any day. But then now he's turned into the guy who pinches too much and creates too many defensive liability issues. Like, there was a play, I think the Leafs were shorthanded, and Matthews got the puck, and he's skating, and McCabe just whizzes past him, and Matthews is forced to give the puck to McCabe, and McCabe goes in on the shot. And I'm like, what are you thinking? You are never going to score that goal, my friend. I'm sorry, but what you should have done is whizzed past Matthews. You had the momentum, keep your momentum, take the pass, and then slow down once you get into the zone and make sure and see if you can make a pass to a guy who can put the puck in the net. Not that you just took the puck from Matthews and then go to the net and you just put it right in the goalie's crest. And then you see other games where McCabe is at the goal line, McCabe is behind the net, and Willie is standing in his spot at the blue line playing defense and he's looking around like, guys, guys, like, stop that. McCabe, stay back, play defense for the love of God. Leafs are probably, I haven't looked up the stat, but I know it's insane, ridiculous low. The amount of goals that are created by the Leafs defense and the way they can get by in a season and finish as high as they do, getting as little production as they do from their defense, they can do it because their forwards are so high end. So somebody tell Jake McCabe to sit the hell back and play some defense, bro. What is the matter with you? Nobody traded you to be this offensive defenseman that you're not. You couldn't score a goal if your life depended on it. Just stay back. Stay back, step up and make a hit every once in a while, but stay the hell back. Stop pinching in. If I see McCabe behind the goal line one more time in the middle of some offensive zone pressure, I swear to God, I'm going to lose my mind. But Timothy Liljegren didn't start the season all that great. He's settled in a little, and then all of a sudden on that second power play unit where him and Riley are running the point, you see him make a play to Riley, and Riley scores. I see Timothy Liljegren, slowly building it and becoming better and better. Because come trade deadline, if McCabe and Liljegren are not good, I don't see them sticking around long term. Mark Giordano is, pretty much on a league minimum contract. Worst comes to worst, you waive him and he retires. I don't think any other team are going to pick him up. His foot speed is really slow, but he gives you all he's got blocking pucks. So, you respect the Toronto guy for doing what he does on the blue line with John Klingberg, who's starting to look better and better as well, and quarterbacking that top line, that top power play has looked good. So in general, not too many things to complain about. It's still very early in the season. A couple of things that are, give you cause for concern. Jake McCabe being one of them. Um, but overall, the Leafs are working their butts off to try to create some chemistry to get the offensive lines going. And we'll see what happens in Dallas. This is a good test against a good team. So, hopefully the defense and Joseph Wall bring everything they have, and the forwards really bring everything they have because Jake Ottinger is not easy to score on. Once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to see this content. Please let me know how you feel about it. If there's anything that you don't like or you do like, please like and subscribe if you do like it. I appreciate it so much. We are also on Facebook, TML domain, and Instagram as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great Halloween, everybody.